think I could do it without this. So, raise your hand if you've heard of the term blockchain. Just raise your hand if you've heard of blockchain. And keep your hand up if you could explain what blockchain is to a friend. That's fast. Okay. Okay, my job is to simply explain to you in very simple terms what is blockchain, why is it important, and why should you know about it. In the next 10 years, blockchain will affect your life. In the next 20 years, it will affect every person's life on Earth. Blockchain is going to be influencing third world nations before first world nations, because there is no infrastructure that needs to be taken down. It will be easier to bring blockchain into less developed countries than existing countries that are highly developed, like the United States and Japan. So let's start with what is blockchain. I'll start with an analogy. We all understand libraries, the public library. Well, the public library is actually a centralized database. Well, what does that mean? Centralized means there's only one of them. There's only one library. Imagine there's only one library in Japan. And the database, the data is the book. The books that are in the library is the data. The centralization is the fact that it is in one place. Now there's a problem with this. The data is vulnerable. A fire can destroy the books. A flood can destroy the books. So it's actually not really very secure data. Even though we have survived and thrived as a species for thousands of years, it's really not the best method. And blockchain adds trust and security over and above what we already have. So imagine one thing that we can do to protect the data is to make branch libraries. So if one of these burns, you have the rest. If this one floods, you have the rest. But there's still a problem. What if you take one book out of this library, and then you go to this library looking for the book that he has? The data is not the same in all the libraries. It's mostly the same, but it's not 100% the same, and we want it 100%. So imagine if the libraries were networked, that they were together and the libraries were now mirror images of each other. So this is what a blockchain is. So first off, a blockchain decentralizes the data. It's not just in one place anymore. It's in multiple places. So if one goes down, the rest can survive. If two go down, the rest can survive. Also, the data is synchronized. So when one book goes into this library, it goes into all the other libraries. Now, when I say the word book, that's actually a data record. An electronic piece of data is going to go into the database and then automatically gets copied into all the others very quickly. The data is redundant, meaning what is in here is in here. So if you go to check out a book from this database, and then you want the same book from this database, it will be there, because they are mirror images of each other. And here's where it gets really interesting. You can actually change a book. You could take a book and you can take a page out of it. Or you could paint over one of the pages and you can't read it. So you can change the data. But imagine if the book was written in stone, a stone tablet. You cannot change that data. And this is what happens with data on a blockchain. That when it goes in, it cannot change. It's there. Even if the data goes in as a mistake, you cannot change it. What you put on stays on forever. Also, the data is transparent. So you can take a look at what's on the blockchain, and you can see it, and you can see it. And that is a definition of a public blockchain. So most people are familiar with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not blockchain. Bitcoin is a digital currency. Blockchain is the engine, the infrastructure that does the accounting for Bitcoin. It's nothing but an accounting software. That's it. Blockchain is not money. Blockchain is nothing but the database, the accounting structure that will record all of the transactions. So a lot of people confuse Bitcoin with blockchain. Not the same at all. It's the same as having, we have different cars. You have a Lexus, you have a Toyota, you have a Mercedes, but they all have engines under the hood. The engine is the blockchain. The Lexus could be Bitcoin. The Toyota could be Ethereum. And the Mercedes could be diplomas on the blockchain. It could be lots of different things. So blockchain is just the engine. And this is basically what a blockchain is. That's it. So just think of your public library system, but all the libraries have the same information at the same time. You cannot change any of the information. If one goes down, the rest will survive. Now, what this gives us is two special things that we do not have enough of on the internet. Trust and security. You can trust that the data you see in the blockchain is the data. No one's changed it. If someone tries to change it, you can tell. Similar to the 1200s and 1300s, centuries ago when we had kings and queens, when they would mail letters, they didn't want people changing the letters. So they covered it with wax and put on a seal. If you broke the wax seal, I don't know what you changed, but I know you changed something. I know that the data is no longer secure because the seal has been broken. With blockchain, if someone tries to tamper with the data, you can tell. You might not be able to know what they changed, but you know something happened. So the security allows you to trust it. Once the security has been broken in a blockchain, you know not to trust the data. And that's why you get trust and security with the blockchain when you don't get that with many other things on the internet. So specifically, tonight's talk is about how blockchain helps education, as well as one of my favorite uses of blockchain is how it can help the supply chain, especially with shipping, with importing and exporting. That is the best use case of blockchain. When I started the blockchain course at Harvard, our blockchain course was the first blockchain course to be taught at Harvard. We taught the class by dividing it by industry. So each week was a different industry. So tonight I'm going to explain education because it's a very simple way to understand it. It's a very simple introduction to blockchain. But then at the end of my discussion tonight, I'll talk about supply chain, which is the absolute best reason to use blockchain for business. So let's take a look at education. With blockchain, you can store diplomas on the blockchain. Now, why is that important? Well, take a look at what diplomas do now. It's a piece of paper. The paper can burn. The paper can be lost. It can be destroyed. If you want to go to graduate school, you have to call your old university. What if they're not in business anymore? What if they don't answer the phone? What if it takes them a month to mail the transcript and it went past the deadline to apply to that new school? You're totally dependent upon that old university. In the United States, we had a hurricane in Puerto Rico. It was a horrible hurricane, and the US mainland did not do much work to clean it up. Schools were destroyed. Students didn't go to school for months, so teachers moved from Puerto Rico to Florida, which was the closest US state. And my mother met teachers from Puerto Rico. When they got to Florida, they were no longer teachers. Why weren't they teachers anymore? Their certificates were destroyed in the hurricane. The school couldn't answer the phone because the school no longer existed. The phone system had been destroyed and there was no electricity. These teachers could not prove that they had been teachers for 20, 30 years. So what did they do? They started over as teacher assistants. making less than half what they had earned in Puerto Rico because they could not prove their credentials or their accomplishments. Now, what happens if there's a war in Japan, you get evacuated, you end up in a refugee camp? Are you going to bring your diploma? No. Are you going to bring your smartphone? No. Your identity gets lost when you become a refugee. That is a problem. At MIT, we have hackathons. I teach high school students how to start businesses at MIT. I teach adults how to start businesses at Harvard. At MIT, they have hackathons. There are these 3-day weekends where you try to solve a problem. At MIT, one of the hackathons was, how do you restore the dignity and identity of refugees in refugee camps? So my project was, you're a brain surgeon in a refugee camp. How can you prove it? I'm a college instructor in a refugee camp. How do I prove it? You're a yoga teacher. How do you prove it? Well, a simple way to do it would be a retina scan. Inside your eye, with a retina scan, there are 23 parts that are identified in the eye. But what if you're in a refugee camp in Afghanistan? Do you think they have that technology? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they're not connected to the internet. Maybe they can't afford it. So let's not use that. What about fingerprints? Fingerprints are unique, right? Not really. Your fingerprint is similar to another person 10,000 steps away from you. Every 10,000 people have a similar fingerprint. So it's not that unique. It's unique enough, but it's not that unique. But here's the problem with fingerprints in a refugee camp. I have to touch a monitor for it to register my fingerprint. But refugee camps have lots of disease. So if you have a disease and you check your fingerprint, and I'm healthy and I check the fingerprint, I might catch your disease. So the identification system could spread disease. So what I discovered at the hackathon is that the ear has 8 points of identification. So I could take a picture of you from here and take a picture of your ear, and I can identify you. Your identifying ear could be linked to the blockchain where I would say, oh, he's a neurosurgeon. Think about that. So these are the sort of things that the blockchain can do for you. So by putting diplomas or licenses identifying material, things that you've accomplished, the data is now permanent instead of being vulnerable to a fire. It's also very convenient because now it can go on your phone. And it's secure because it cannot be changed. So if you say you're a PhD, I can't change it and say, well, it's really an undergrad degree. You're a PhD, you're always going to be a PhD on the blockchain. So now this is MIT's Block Search project. The MIT Media Lab has an app. You can actually download this app. It's called Block Search. It's free. So you download the app. At the end of today's lecture, if you give me your business card, I will create a certificate of attendance that you attended this talk, which would be like a little mini diploma, and I'm going to put it on the blockchain, and I'm going to give it to you. So you give me your business card. I'm going to open up a little school, like a little university. I will create the certificates of attendance, and you'll be able to see what a diploma would look like on the blockchain. So even though I'm not going to be giving you a 4-year degree or a master's degree, you can't be a neurosurgeon, you can get a certificate of attendance, and you'll be able to see what a diploma would look like, because these are the diplomas of the future. MIT issues diplomas on the blockchain now. You also get a paper certificate, but they also go on the blockchain, as well as the country of Malta puts them on the blockchain. Now, I'm working in China through the end of August, and I consult with a group called Al Gore Block, and I'm helping them do projects on the blockchain. And I got a really good idea. I met a guy named Douglas Prescott. He's the superintendent of the International School of Canada in Beijing. Now, Douglas has 19,000 students over 28 locations in China. And guess what Douglas said to me? We don't issue transcripts anymore. Oh, really? Are they electronic? No. They're still paper. Well, how do students get their transcripts? They don't. Well, why don't you issue transcripts? Because there's so much fraud in China. They change the report card. They get a C, they change it to an A. They improve their grades. From this, I thought to myself, Douglas needs certificates on the blockchain. Now, who loses here? The students that go to his school. If you're a student at the International School of Canada and you want to go to Harvard, you're not getting in without a transcript. So it's going to be more time and money to figure out, how do I get my transcript and get it to Harvard or to whatever institution I want to get to? This is a major problem. In the world each year, 45,000 people earn a PhD. 45,000. And 55,000 people fraudulently create a PhD. There are more fake PhDs in the world than valid ones. Now comes the problem that most people are not aware of. Harvard has about a 5% acceptance rate. 1 out of 20 people get in. Most people who apply are qualified. But now imagine this scenario. Nobu applies. Du applies. Perfect grades. They're both Olympic swimmers. They both play the violin perfectly. They do everything great. They're carbon copies of each other. I can only let one in. How do I choose? It's hard. It's really hard. I can only fit in one, but imagine how easy would the decision be if Nobu went to school in Switzerland and all of his transcripts were from Switzerland, and oh, all of Du's transcripts are from China. Huh. Chinese data, Swiss data. What if I let in the kid from China and it turns out to be not true? I will be very embarrassed that I let in an applicant on fraudulent information. That's pretty risky. It's just like a museum paying $10 million for a fake Van Gogh. You look pretty dumb. So if I have these two, Swiss, Chinese, oh, it's just much safer to go with the Swiss student. And the Chinese student who's honest and really worked and really deserved to get in, doesn't get in because of the reputation of the data is corrupted in China. So my idea is to put transcripts into a national database in China on the blockchain. So it becomes verified, it becomes correct, it goes into the database, and so when someone from China applies to an institution anywhere in the world, those institutions like Harvard could say, that's the most secure data in the world. That information is more accurate than anyone. And then when it comes between the Chinese student and the Swiss student, his data is more secure than the kid from Switzerland now. So China could actually be a model for secure transcript data, only because they really need to improve the reputation and security of their data. It's a real problem. And who suffers are the honest students from China that aren't getting into US institutions because the admissions office isn't really believing that their transcripts are true. And don't ever expect an admissions officer in the United States to ever admit that. It just makes common sense. So here's some of the advantages of digital diplomas. Yeah, we've already gone through, you get virtual records instead of paper records. You can't fake it. If you try, it's just like the king's wax seal. You'll see that someone changed the data. You might not know what changed, but you know something did. You just simply don't trust it. You can now take credits that you earned and transfer them to other schools. So now that you have your transcript on your phone, and I want to transfer from this university to that university, I just hit it with my phone. Oh, this is the best part. You control your diplomas. You don't have to call up the school that you went to before. You don't have to call the high school that you went to. You don't have to call the 2 colleges that you went to. You control the diplomas, so you no longer are asking for transcripts. You're no longer hoping they answer the phone. You're no longer paying them $100 or 1,000 yen to send it somewhere. You no longer hope that they please send it today. You don't have to call them back every week to see if they sent it, because you control what you've earned. You can share this with employees and employers. Every school that you went to, no matter where you went in the world, all of your data will be in one place on your phone. If you have a fire where the school no longer exists or you become a refugee, doesn't matter, it's all in the cloud. So this saves time and money. It also saves time and money for the school, because now the school doesn't have to staff people to run the transcript department. So this actually saves the school money because it streamlines some of their work as well. And also, the potential of bribing someone in a transcript office to send out a fake transcript, that no longer exists either. You can have a lifelong learning passport with blockchain. So we just talked about diplomas, but what about licenses? Like, oh, maybe you need an electrician. I'm a licensed electrician, and you can tell that because it's on the blockchain. But if I say, oh yeah, I'm an electrician, and I'm a dentist. Really? An electrician and a dentist? By having your licenses up on the blockchain, they can be verified. I'm writing my 3rd book this summer, and it's being published first in Chinese. I don't speak any Chinese. I'm not really sure. If someone translated my book, if they put their name on it, I can't tell, it's not my name. So I want to copyright it on the blockchain first in English. Then if it gets translated into another language and someone tries to say that they're the author, I can say, oh, no. I was first because I went on the blockchain before you published the book in a language that I don't understand. Apprenticeships. You can put those on the blockchain. Any certificate that you take, like tonight's certificate, you're going to be getting a certificate of attendance. It probably won't get you into Harvard, but it will show you what a diploma looks like on the blockchain. If you take online courses, maybe you spent 5 hours learning about something online and you didn't. Well, how do we know that you really spent that time at home or over the weekend on your laptop? Well, having a badge, which is basically an online diploma, will prove, yes, he actually spent that time. So this is the control that you can have with the diplomas. An individual school can have a blockchain. School groups, so if you have different locations, different campuses, they can all be put together. And this is what I'm interested in doing with China, that every single transcript that any Chinese citizen ever earned goes into a national database. What about a global depository? What if you went to school in Switzerland when you were 10, but then you went to high school in London, and then you went to college in the United States, and then you moved to Japan? Well, if all of your transcripts were global, it wouldn't be really a hard time to prove your accomplishments. But here's the best part. Student controlled. The student controls the diploma. You don't have to call the old institutions to find out, where's my information? Could you please send it somewhere? Because you have it in your back pocket, literally. So there are actually patent applications by Sony now trying to control this. Right now this is called open source, so you could actually get the code to make your own diploma blockchain. And there are large institutions that are trying to shut that down and profit from it. Right now it's free, which is why I'm giving it to you for free, because it's free for me as well. So now the second thing that you can do with blockchain is digital payments. Now, you can use money. You could use yen. You can use US dollars. You can use credit cards. So why do we need to get into digital payments and utility tokens? A utility token is like a gift card. So let's say that it's Nobu's birthday, and I want to give, and I know Nobu likes cake, so I'm going to give him a gift card to the bakery shop. Well, that's like a utility token. Utility means it does something that you can use. A token is like a gift card. It's like money. Well, I know that Nobu doesn't have a lot of money, and I know that Nobu works too much. And I know that Nobu's car isn't in very good condition. So I'm afraid if I give Nobu 1,000 yen, he's going to fix his car. And that's not really fun. I want Nobu to have some fun for his birthday. So I give him a gift card just for the bakery. Now, why is that better than cash? Because he can only use it at the bakery. He can only buy cakes with it, and that's what I want. And that's what a utility token does. It's money, and you can control how it is used by the person who receives it. So watch how utility tokens in education work. You can buy products or services with utility token. When you see this phrase, utility token, just think gift card. A lot of things with blockchain, they change the names, confuses people. Everyone's like, oh my God, I'm not smart enough for blockchain. You're all smart enough. It's not that hard. They just like to change the words to sound a little smarter. So here are the advantages of using payments on the blockchain. It's faster than cash. It's even faster than a credit card. And it's secure. If someone steals your yen out of your pocketbook, it's gone. But someone cannot steal your money off of the blockchain, not your tokens. Now there's convenience. It's just easy. It's on your phone, like digital payments. For example, I've been living in Beijing for almost a month now. I haven't used RMB yet. This is my money, Alipay. I get paid at a bank that's in an app. I transfer it to Alipay, and everything is beep, beep. So whenever I hear beep, I'm like, oh, money. It's like So here's what you can do with payments on the blockchain for education. You can pay your tuition with it. So let's say, what's your name in the back? What's your name?
My name's Dylan.
Dylan?
Dylan.
Hi, Dylan. So let's say that I am Dylan's brother. And I want to make sure that Dylan gets a great education in Japan. Well, Dylan's young. And if I give him money for tuition, Dylan might buy a car. And I don't want that. Because I know what's going to happen is Dylan's going to buy the car, then he's going to call me and say, Michael, I need tuition money again. And I'm like, okay, you already bought a car, you're going to buy a house now? I don't really trust Dylan is going to really spend it on education unless I give Dylan a token that can only be used for tuition. Same thing with financial aid. Now, they should have had this when I was in school. When I was at New York University, my father was sick. And he was the youngest man in the world to have a 5-way bypass. It was heart surgery. Then he had a 3-way bypass. Then he had a 4-way bypass. Then he retired at the age of 36. By the time I went to college, my father only had a few years to live. And so he became an experiment at Merck Sharp and Dohme for a cholesterol drug, the first statin ever to come on the market. My father was in the group. And my father was not getting the placebo. He was getting the real drug. My father called me and said, Michael, my cholesterol used to be 600. Now it's 200. 200 is normal. 600, not so normal. Well, I thought, wow, this is $1 billion drug. Now this is 1985. So it was decades ago. So $1 billion was huge. Well, I had just gotten financial aid, $3,000. And my dad called the same day to say that his cholesterol drug was working. So I called the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and asked, when is Merck Sharp and Dohme going to be coming up for approval of their new drug? October of 1987. This was March of 1987. In March of 1987, I stole my financial aid money, $3,000. And by the end of summer of 1987, I had over $80,000. I paid for 4 years of college with stock options I bought on Merck Sharp and Dohme because I stole the money. Now, had the blockchain been around with utility tokens, I wouldn't have made all that money, but I would have honestly used the money to go into the dorm. Now, what would have happened if Merck Sharp & Dohme was never approved? I would have lost the $3,000. I would have been homeless. And I would have called my dad and said, "Hey, Dad, remember that financial aid money for the dorm? Well, I lost it on that drug that didn't do very well." Fortunately, that didn't happen. But it's people like me that should be given utility tokens, because you're not necessarily trusting who has it. Also, keep in mind in education, a lot of people are young. They don't always make the wisest decisions. So this could be a safe way to give your child money, give them control over deciding what they learn without having them buy Porsches and buy stock. Also, a grant. A lot of people love to get grant money. It's very hard to get a grant. Now imagine if I applied for $1 million grant from the government, and they give it to me. And they go, "Ha, celebrate, let's go out to dinner." Who's going to pay for it? "Oh, we got this grant money." And this is how grant money gets abused. If the grant money was in the form of a token, you wouldn't be able to buy dinner with it. You could only use it for research purposes. So this is a way to make sure that you can prevent fraud. So you don't have to spend so much money on people preventing fraud. You don't have to spend so much money on auditing anymore. What's there to audit? You can't use the money outside of what it was directed for. So the cost of doing business, the auditing and the policing and fraud prevention can go away with blockchain. You can also pay for online courses. I believe in children learning what they want to learn. So let's say that you're my son. And I say, "Hey, go online and learn whatever you want. Here's a bunch of money." Well, if he wants to learn about physics, or he wants to learn about art, or he wants to learn about sailing, he can do that. And I don't worry that he's going to go buy some toy on Amazon or Taobao. So let's talk about how you can actually use blockchain to really disrupt an industry. So again, I do some consulting for Al Gore Block. They sent me here to Japan for the last few days to talk about what they're doing in the space. And the original idea of Al Gore was to take a look at how could you improve the traditional model of education, which is basically going to a college and getting a degree. This model has been around for centuries. It hasn't changed much, has it? So it's a formal institution. The changes that we have noticed is that you can do online education. You can do conferences. This could be a conference. And you do boot camps, which are like hackathons, where you spend a couple of intense days learning things. This is about all the innovation that's happened in the space, but let's take it another step further. The question is going to a regular institution, a normal college, enough to compete in today's society? Depends on what you're doing. My original work was working on Wall Street. I owned a money management firm. I started when I was 26. I retired 10 years later when I was 36. But when I went to New York University, I tried to study investing. Doesn't exist. You still can't go to college to study investing. They don't tell you anything about technical analysis. They don't tell you anything about how to invest. The closest you can get is finance, and that's corporate finance. They will not teach you how to invest. There was one investment course at NYU, and it was called Buy and Hold. You buy some stocks, you hold them forever, and I said, that can't be right. Because when people go to work on Wall Street downtown, I was living in New York City, there's a big difference between who takes the subway to work and who takes a limousine. And I want to know the difference. And I ended up working for a famous money manager. I was his researcher, and that's how I learned how to trade money. You can learn it, but a lot of people have no interest in teaching you how to make millions of dollars for the price of tuition. It's just not public information. They don't really want to share it. The information exists, just no one wants to take a teacher's salary and teach you how to do it. So now comes the question, what if you remove the institution? What if you're the students and I'm the teacher, and we just got rid of the building? Well, what would happen? So the teacher quits, okay, I walk out the door, we all go sit under a tree, take out our laptops, and we learn. So the one thing that transfers is the information. The one thing that we leave behind is the brick and mortar institution. So what does that actually look like? Well, education becomes a lot more affordable because we don't have to pay for the building anymore. The teachers could earn more because there's more of your tuition money that could go directly towards the teacher. The smallest allocation in higher education's budget is probably going to be the teachers. They don't make the most, even though they're the most important part of the whole machine. The students can pay less because you don't have to pay for the building. Imagine that. You pay less. I earn more because we cut out the middleman, and that's what blockchain does. Blockchain cuts out the middleman and gives the benefit to the consumer. So now, all education can be recognized. Now, this model looks really nice on paper, but there's one thing that this model is missing, and that is brand recognition. If you take a class from me, you get a certificate saying you learned something from Michael McCarthy. Okay, fine. You might learn something. I might think I taught you something. Do you know who Michael McCarthy is? Do they? Who knows who Michael McCarthy is? Not that many people. But what if you got a certificate from Harvard and the instructor was named Michael McCarthy? Well, they still don't know Michael McCarthy, but they know Harvard. And you're going to get recognized for that. So what you lose in this scenario by getting rid of the institution is you lose the brand. You lose the recognition that, oh, someone went to a high-quality institution. How much do you think a Rolls-Royce is worth when you take the name Rolls-Royce off the car and it's just a car going down the road? You don't know what it is. Try it. I've done that. I've looked at cars and thought, yeah, if they took Maserati off of it, it's kind of an ugly car. I think Maseratis are pretty ugly cars. But when you have the badge on it, it's better looking because it's a Maserati. Same thing with Bentley. There's some Bentleys that are really nice, but some of them are like, ugh. If that was just a regular car, if it was a Ford, I wouldn't buy it. So losing brand recognition is important. However, so this doesn't fit for everybody. But where would this fit? What if you were poor? What if you lived in a rural area and you couldn't leave where you left because it was your job to run the farm and take care of your elder parents? You could not leave where you lived. You didn't have the money, you didn't have the time, you didn't have the ability. But if you could go take an online course and learn how to farm, or learn accounting, or learn online commerce, you don't care about the diploma. You care about the information. So for people who are impoverished and living in rural areas, this is a great model. This would actually help a lot of people. Will it help everybody? No. Everyone in this room, we probably don't need that. We're the fortunate few in this world. So this model wouldn't work for us, but the majority of people who don't have the choices that we have, this would really help them. So this model would work for those people. Now here's how it would actually work. So you have what's called a smart contract. A smart contract is just a regular contract, but it operates through a computer, and so it self-executes on its own. And what it basically does is that the student would buy a token or would be given a token by the parent or someone. So the token can only pay for the teacher's time. So the student goes online, they buy some tokens, which is basically acting like money. It's just education dollars. They choose the teacher that they want. Okay, I want to learn algebra today from some guy in Africa. Okay, and he costs 2 or 3 Algor tokens. You pay the teacher directly. And what happens when you're done? The teacher gives you a certificate that will then go on the blockchain. And you can show, I took 3 hours of algebra from a teacher in South Africa, and I know algebra now. That's basically it. Then what happens is that the student and the teacher will rate each other. So it's important that the teacher gets a rating, because what if I'm teaching algebra and you're teaching algebra and you're teaching algebra and so are you? Well, the teacher rating is really important. So I'm going to get a lot more students. If I treat you really well as my student and you give me a good rating, then you're probably going to hire me instead of Nobu. So the teacher ratings are important. It's just like a Yelp rating. I could also charge more money because I'm a better teacher. So again, basic economics still come into play. So blockchain can help in several areas. It can connect directly teachers with students. You can store the certificates. You can give out the records. You can rate each other. And you can use payment systems on it. It can do everything that a university does. Cheaper, faster, and minus the great brand name. So it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So now, what about early childhood education? The one thing that I like, I've only been a teacher for about 10 years. I'm actually a retired money manager, and I got bored being retired, so now I teach, which is fun. But one of my ideas is I teach people how to start businesses. And I started with basically the 20 to 45-year-old community at Harvard. Then I had an opportunity to be part of a pilot program at Harvard Business School called the Advanced Leadership Initiative. And the idea, according to HBS, is that people are living longer. That at 65, you're not done with your life. You probably have another 20, 25 years of being really productive. So what they decided in the Advanced Leadership Initiative is to take incredibly accomplished people who, upon retirement, would want to come to Harvard Business School and create social entrepreneurship ventures, something to really improve the lives of the world. I got hired to be their coach and their advisor because they think so high level, they have no idea how to break it down into the day-to-day, how to do a startup. So some of the people that have come to us have been the Assistant Secretary of Defense from the United States, the head of NASA in the United States. We've had the CEO of Nickelodeon, the CEO of Sesame Street. We've had the head of Lululemon. We've had some really interesting people. One of my clients now was the very first woman in Silicon Valley to be a board of director of Hewlett-Packard. So her job is to try to help women break the glass ceiling in the IT industry. And it's my job to help her do that. So she knows high level what she wants to do, but I'm the one that will break it down. And what I like is that these are brilliant people who are teaching me things. Mostly what I do is I calm them down because they're afraid of failing. Because they're so successful, they do not want to end their career with a failure. So mostly they have a lot of anxiety. But what I do is I take their wisdom, I take their knowledge, and then I bring it to my Harvard students who are younger. But I also teach at MIT. At MIT, I teach high school students how to create a business in under 30 days. It's a summer program. So I take the wisdom and the judgment of the older people from Harvard Business School, and I bring it down to the teenagers at MIT. But then I cross-pollinate. I take the enthusiasm and the energy and the I can be anything I want attitude up to the older people at HBS, and I can say, okay, stop with the negativity. Why don't you learn something from the little kid over here? You need that energy and enthusiasm, because if you're going to start a business, you have to have energy and enthusiasm, because you're going to be your own cheerleader. But now I'm going to bring it down to children. So now I'm proud to say that I'm actually teaching 3-year-olds up to 85-year-olds, and I cross-pollinate the information from each of them. And it's really interesting how brilliant 3-year-olds are, especially with a foreign language. They're like little sponges. You could teach them something once and they get it. Try to teach a foreign language to someone over the age of 60. It doesn't really stick. The brain just isn't meant for that anymore. At that young age, it's really easy for them. So one of the things that I came up with is how to teach older people a foreign language. And how do I want to do it? Bring them to preschool. Do the same thing. Put them in little chairs, teach them colors, teach them songs, because it works for the little kids, and the older people need that kind of simplicity because languages are really hard for them at that age. So this is where cross-pollination comes in. But let's take a look at some of the things that we're doing in early childhood education. So this is the school, and I got hired because this is basically designed to groom preschoolers how to get into the Ivy League. Now, initially, I turned the job down because I thought, well, in China, and I don't think Japan's much different, I think they put too much pressure on the child. to say, you're going to be this, you're going to do that. I want you to be an accountant, and I don't really care what you want to do. This is what I want you to do as my son. Well, I didn't want to be a part of that. I certainly didn't want to be a part of starting that process earlier as a 3-year-old. So I said, well, I'll do it, but we have to do things a little bit differently. I want the child to choose what they want to learn. And this is actually the way the school is designed. They're going to let the child choose what they want to learn. And this is how it looks. So this is a map of the school. This is the middle area. This is the science room. This is the daycare room. This is the English room. This is the art room. Now, I believe that if you let a student just wander into a room that they want and they spend a lot of time there, I'm guessing, I could be wrong, I'm guessing they really enjoy being there. So if you spend a lot of time in the art room, I bet you're going to be a pretty good artist. If you spend a lot of time in the science room, I bet you're probably going to be pretty good at science. That's my theory. So I want to know, if you find an interest as a young child, a passion on your own, deciding without anyone influencing you, does that influence educational achievement as an adult? I think it does, but I don't know. You have to prove it. So here's what I want to do. On Taobao, they have these little kids' watches that have GPS trackers on them. It's basically to help children who get lost or kidnapped. So the watch can call the child. The parent can listen to the child. The child can hit an SOS button if they have an emergency. But this is what I care about, the GPS. It tracks their location. So what I want to do is give each child a watch. They get to choose the color, and they get to choose the name of the watch, and it's a branded school watch, and it's going to track how much time they spend in each classroom. So here comes the spreadsheet. So Jennifer, she spent 5 hours in the semester in the science room. Not too much. Oh, 300 hours in the art room. I bet you Jennifer could be the next Van Gogh. I don't know, but you better start tracking the data now, because it's going to take you 30, 40 years to see what she becomes as a grown-up. And the data needs to be checked now. If you put it on the blockchain, you can't change it. Even if I'm dead, you can't change it, and it's still going to be there. Now let's take a look at Mary. Oh, Mary doesn't like the art class too much, but she loves science. Well, women are just as smart as men, and women are highly underrepresented in the science field. Is it because the parents say, oh, women shouldn't be scientists? Well, we don't have that model. You can learn what you want. So since women are underrepresented in the science area, if Mary wants to become a scientist, my guess would be, let Mary do what Mary wants to do. And maybe Mary will be the next Einstein of the next century. Why not? So now you're going to be getting this little pie chart that basically says that Jennifer has spent 61% of her time in art and a very small amount of time in drama. So when Jennifer grows up, or when it comes time for Jennifer's birthday present, what do you want to buy her? You want to buy her some paints, or do you want to buy her a tutu for ballet? She's probably going to like the paints because she's interested in art. So let her do that. So now what we want to send to the parents is we take the spreadsheet, we convert it into a certificate, which then gets sent to the parents. So we send them a key, which is, the key is basically the encryption so that no one can change it. And every week, I'm going to send the parents a little report card saying that Mary or Jenny is interested in art or science or whatever they are, and encourage the parent, which I'm reinforcing with a book that I'm writing on early childhood education. Let your kid decide what they want to learn. Leave them alone. As a parent, you really just want them to be successful and happy. And as a parent, you love your child. And sometimes you think you know better. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So you might think, well, they'll be better off learning accounting, or they'll be better off being a scientist. Well, actually, they'll be better off doing what they want because they have a better chance of being more successful at it. That, again, is my theory. And by sending them their weekly spreadsheets of what their child is really interested in, I want to encourage the parents to let their child be their child. So here's how it would actually work. The issuer would be the school or the university, would send an email to the student's parents in this case, saying, hi, we want to send you your diplomas on the blockchain. They say yes, so we take the little diploma or the certificate, whenever the hourly rating, and we put it through what's called a hash function, meaning that we take the information, we encrypt it, it gets its own little social security, gets its own little serial number, so it can't be changed, and then we email it to you. It goes onto your phone. And then after your child has graduated preschool, you can send that to the international school of your choice and say, hey, my child has spent 1,000 hours learning art. Do you think they would belong in Juilliard? Maybe they'll get in because they spent so much time since the age of 3. So your certificates will be going on the app. So Al Gore would supply this to you. So you have a school. Let's say it's an art school. They don't care about tech. They're not really interested in it. But they're interested in digital diplomas. So they would hire Al Gore to put those diplomas on the blockchain. So Al Gore would be doing that for the MAD preschool. MAD stands for Make a Difference. So when the child graduates MAD education, Make a Difference, they get this little kiddie diploma, which is really cute. So you have a ceremony, the kid gets their diploma in a paper format, they probably get a cake and everything to a little party. The parents get is the digital diploma on their smartphone that they can then send to the International School of Canada, to Douglas Prescott, and say, hey, my kid has a digital diploma from preschool. What do your high schoolers have? And then maybe Douglas would say, great idea. Maybe I should do digital diplomas as well. So what else can you do with the diploma? Well, since it's going to be on your phone, you can put it on LinkedIn, Facebook, email it to someone, put it on Dropbox, Google Drive, give people a link to it. It's yours. Do whatever you want with it. Now, what I've created as well this summer is MAD Teen, because I want to support students to go from preschool into international schools into Ivy League institutions. Now, this idea came because I realized how much the Chinese community really wants their kids to go to the Ivy League, how much pressure they put on themselves. But I also know on the admissions side, you could be just as good as somebody else. So the diplomas have to be trusted first, so that's where the blockchain comes in. But then you also have to be different. You can't just say, I'm a perfect student and I play violin and I won the Olympics in skiing, because so many other people have as well. But I've actually helped teenagers get into the Ivy League. And I'm going to show you how I did it, and I'm turning it into workshops this summer in China. So the first thing we do is I teach high schoolers how to create businesses in under 30 days at MIT. Well, I can shrink that down into a 3-day hackathon workshop where I can give you a skeleton idea of a business that you would start. So you can make the blueprint. The business will not exist, but I can give you the blueprint, the recipe for it. And between the end of the workshop and the time that you apply to school, your job is to actually start that business. So for the most part, I teach you how to start really simple service businesses so that you can have revenue, and you now apply to college as an entrepreneur, not as a really smart student. It's to make yourself be completely different. Oh, and actually, I brought a little something, which I'll show you in just a second. So we take the 3-day course, and it's based on the MIT model. Then the next thing we do is that I interview you on my television show in Boston. So Startup TV Boston was started by me a few years ago because my Harvard students, whose final exam was to create a startup, at the end of the semester, some of their ideas were really good. And they said, we want to continue. Some of them had big ideas that needed money. And I thought, well, it takes a lot of time to raise money. I have to call you, get the appointment, maybe I have to fly to Tokyo from New York. We do the little niceties. I'm spending time in the hotel. I give you my 15-minute pitch deck. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. A lot of time, a lot of money. So what I ended up doing is I made a TV show filming your pitch. And then I put the pitch on YouTube, and then you send a link to a prospective investor. If they like you, then you can fly to Tokyo. If they don't like you, they throw you away. And you saved yourself and them a lot of time. So this is Laurie Stotch. Laurie Stotch is the creator of MIT's LaunchX. So I had her on the show. And one of the people I also invited was Alex Lamb. Alex was a student for MIT LaunchX. Only 15% of applicants get in, and Alex had a really cool idea. This is Penny the Penguin. Penny the Penguin is something I'm cross-pollinating into the preschool in Beijing. The way Penny the Penguin works, it's for parents who have children who don't listen to them. Inside Penny the Penguin is a Bluetooth speaker. Attached to it is an app. So the parents will type in a text message of what they want the child to do. So for example, I could text in a message, it's time to go to bed, and then Penny the Penguin says, it's time to go to bed now. So you can actually increase child compliance. Here comes the cross-pollination. Alex actually got funded. He's now in Singapore, and I just ordered, and I paid retail to support him. I just paid 300 RMB for his product, because it's a really good idea. But what am I going to do with it? I'm going to change it for what I want. So our Chinese students who are learning English will go home at the end of the day. I'm going to reprogram Penny the Penguin so that the parents will text in Chinese, it's time to brush your teeth. And in English, Penny the Penguin will say, it's time to brush your teeth. And what have I done? I have just doubled or tripled the amount of time per day that that little child is learning English. And guess what might also happen? I bet you the parents are going to learn some English too, because it's a translator. They could learn words like stop. Type it in Chinese, in English, stop. Okay, that's pretty easy. So the parent is going to learn English along with their child if they want to. So this is what we're going to do with Alex. Now here is Satiris. Satiris is the one that actually gave me the idea. Satiris is from Greece. When he came to my show, he was 16 years old. He was on his 4th startup. And because of the show, last year we won a television show award in Boston for Best Educational TV Show. So what I did with Satiris is I taught him for 30 days at MIT. I put him on the TV show, and then Satiris said, Michael, I'm applying to Stanford. Would you write me a letter of recommendation? So I did, because I knew him. I only knew him for 30 days, but I knew him, and so I wrote a letter of what I thought were Satiris' strengths. I also talked about what his weaknesses were, where I thought he would thrive at Stanford and where I thought he might have some challenges. Wow. This is Satiris' acceptance letter from Stanford University, early admission. And I thought, people from China really want to go to Harvard. They want to go to any Ivy League school. What if I made them entrepreneurs? What if I interviewed them on my show? And what if I gave them a letter of recommendation? So that's what my 3-day workshop does. So step 2 is after you've had the workshop, you pitch your idea on TV, which I can do with my laptop because everything's electronic now. Then I give you your letter of recommendation. In those 3 days, I'm going to learn enough about you where I can tell the institution what I think your strengths are and what I think your challenges are. And I'm also going to say, I've only known you for 3 days, so this won't be the best letter of recommendation in the world, but it's going to be telling you exactly what I do know about you. But also what I know about China is that they buy letters of recommendation. So if I give this to one person, this could get photoshopped. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it on the blockchain. So you're not going to get it in paper format, you're going to get it in MIT's BlockCerts. And it's going to say in the letter that this letter of recommendation is only valid in digital form on the MIT BlockCerts blockchain. It is not valid in paper format because it should be suspect as a forgery. That's the plan. And this is how I'm using blockchain. So now this is where you can use blockchain in education, but you can use it in several other areas. Before I move into blockchain, into my favorite sector, supply chain, are there any questions? Are there any areas of confusion that you would like me to clear up before I move into the next section? Any questions anyone has? Okay, so let's move into supply chain. I'm going to need a few volunteers. Could I ask you to be one volunteer? Just stand right next to me. Can I ask you to come up? Yes. So you're going to come up, and could I ask you to stand right next to him right here? And then could you come up as well and just stand next to her? Okay, so you're going to come here and stand right here. So he is going to be a customs agent in Boston, Massachusetts. And you are going to own a ship, a cargo ship that does import and export. And then you are going to be a customs agent in Japan. And I need one more person. Dylan's your name? Dylan, could you come on up? So now, Dylan, you're just going to stand right next to our customs agent. And this is how the supply chain is going to work. So I'm actually a business owner in Massachusetts. I have an import-export business. And I want to import something really interesting from Japan that I want to sell to the United States, to people there. Well, you know what Japan's really good at? They make really good cars. They're much better than American cars. I haven't owned an American car in a long time. So I really like Lexuses. Lexuses are actually better built than Mercedes. I used to drive Mercedes, but Lexuses, they just never break. Nothing ever goes wrong. So why don't I import a Lexus from Dylan, who makes Lexuses in Japan? Now, here's one of the challenges with import and export. A container ship is going to hold probably about 2 Lexuses. It only costs about $500 to ship on a container ship. It's not much money. But it costs $1,000 to track the shipment. $500 to ship the car, $1,000 to track it. Well, why is it $1,000? Because I spend about a month going, hey Dylan, is the car ready? Hey Dylan, is it at the port yet? Hey Dylan, is it shipped yet? Hey Dylan, where's the ship going? Now I'm calling up the ship captain, bothering that person. Where's the ship? Are you almost there? Then it lands in the port. Now I'm calling up the Boston guy. Hey, why is my stuff stuck at the port? Why can't I get my Lexus out? It's been there for 2 days. The time and the money and energy I spend to track that shipment makes that Lexus I sell to you as an American citizen more expensive because I pass the cost on. But what if all the people involved in the transaction were on the blockchain? So here's what happens, and we're going to create a smart contract. So I'm going to write a regular paper contract saying to Dylan, I'm going to buy this Lexus from you for $1,000,000 yen. It's a really nice car. The LS, it's a nice one, right? So this smart contract is now in electronic form. So a smart contract is just a regular contract that executes automatically by computer. So what the computer code is going to say is, I want to buy 2 Lexuses from Dylan. It says in there, the minute I wire Dylan 50% deposit, he's going to start building the car. Now let's say that Dylan is on vacation. I wire the money. I wire 50%. Boom. The order goes live in the factory. The people in the factory start building the car while Dylan is on vacation because we don't need Dylan to say, hey, let's do this. It's electronic now. So now Dylan comes back from vacation. The cars have been built. Dylan now delivers the car and the smart contract to the customs agent in Japan. So give her the contract, and imagine that now she has the car at the port. Well now, as the customs agent, she stamps the document electronically that says, yes, I have received a Lexus. I have a Lexus, and it has Michael's name on it. It's shipping to Boston. This is true, it's really happening. That smart contract will send me a bill saying, send Dylan more money, another 25%. So now Dylan has been paid 75% because the first half was to build the car. The second half of it, the other 25%, was because he did everything he was supposed to. He's done now. He can't do anything else. So now 75% of the money is in Dylan's hand. The customs agent now has it. She then gives it to the ship captain. So now the ship captain is going to stamp it that, yes, it's on the ship. And along with it is going to be a beacon. So in the beacon, which is going to go inside the car, is a GPS tracking device that is going to tell me where the car is as it ships through the ocean. Now, why is that important? Because now I'm not calling Dylan or the port agent or the ship captain. I pick up my phone and I can just watch my car move across the ocean. It saves me a lot of time and money. Once it arrives, bring the smart contract and the beacon to the customs agent in Boston. So the customs agent stamps it. Okay, you're clear. You're able to take the car. Oh, but the minute I get the car, the smart contract says you can't get the car until you send Dylan the last 25%. Dylan is fully paid 100% before I take the car off the dock. So now Dylan loves me because he gets paid faster. So now Dylan could actually sell me that car cheaper in the future because he's not having to borrow money off of his credit line to float the transaction. So I can buy the car a little cheaper through Dylan because we're on the blockchain. And I didn't spend $1,000 to track that shipment, so I paid even less for the car, which means I can sell you a Lexus cheaper than anyone else in America. And aren't I going to get richer for it? So you, all my competitors selling a Lexus. I'm the only person in America that can sell a Lexus as cheaply as I can. And it's not because I'm doing anything wrong, it's because I'm doing something smarter. I ship using the blockchain. Now watch how the blockchain gets even better. So let's start the transaction over, and let's talk about a bad transaction. Same thing happens. Dylan, I want to buy a Lexus. Smart contract, boom, send me 50%. I sent him half the money. He delivers the car to the customs agent in Japan. Excellent. Customs agent stamps it. I send another 25%. She puts it on the ship. Now the little beacon, hold up the beacon has two things in it. It has a GPS locator and it has a humidity monitor. It monitors the water concentration inside the car. Watch what happens. The ship sinks. It's at the bottom of the ocean. The beacon just blew. There's 100% water inside your car, Mr. McCarthy. Huh, it's on a ship. It's traveling to the United States, and the car is full of water. What do I think happened? The ship sunk. So the smart contract now will automatically refund my money. I get my 75% back right away because it's in the smart contract. Because the beacon says, if the beacon equals 100% water, then wire Michael back his money. And if the beacon equals 100% water, then file a claim with Dylan's insurance company. It's the fastest way that Dylan can get his money back. Now imagine if we didn't have this. What would really happen? I'm doing it the old-fashioned way. Dylan, where's my car? Oh, I brought it to the dock a week ago. It's fine. Dylan, it's been 3 weeks. I still don't see my car. I don't know. I call up the shipping place. Do you really think they want to tell me the ship sunk? It'll probably take a little while before they admit that. And then I go, Dylan, I gave you 75% of my money, and I have a ship at the bottom of the ocean. I want my money back. And Dylan's like, well, I'm sorry. I built you a car, and I brought it to the dock. That was my job. I did what I was supposed to do. You're not getting any money back because I don't have a Lexus. And I did everything you asked me to do. It's not my fault that it sunk. Well, he's right. But not after I've yelled at him a lot, and now he's probably angry with me. Then I call up the shipping company, and they go, oh, you signed that disclaimer, that little waiver, that maybe things won't work out, so we're not going to really help you out either. So now I have to go to the insurance company. How long is that going to take? Maybe I sue Dylan because I go, well, you knew that the ship was old. You know how Americans are. We'll just sue anybody that we can. So I'll sue everyone involved. But then I just destroyed my relationship with Dylan. You think he wants to sell me a car again? No. But with a smart contract, if I get my money back right away, and Dylan gets his insurance contract fulfilled right away, what am I going to do tomorrow? Hey, Dylan, I still need that Lexus. Can we do the transaction again? And why won't I give him the money? I have the money. I already got my refund from the first Lexus that's at the bottom of the ocean. So it can maintain the business relationship between people. I don't have to trust Dylan anymore. It's just simply business because we have a smart contract. And this is the benefit of how supply chain would work using blockchain. I find it to be the absolute best example. So what blockchain actually does, it removes the trust that you need to have with strangers. So I don't have to trust you because the way the system is set up is I'm going to be taken care of. You're incentivized to do the good thing. If you want to do something that's not so good, it's okay, the system will protect me anyhow. And it allows me to maintain the relationships. Also, he can transact cheaper. I can transact cheaper. I can compete better against my competitors because I can get goods and services cheaper because I'm using the blockchain. So there is a small window of opportunity in the import-export business that exists now because very few people are using blockchain. However, IBM is the company to go to. I have no relationship with IBM, but they're using Hyperledger. That is the name of the blockchain that they use, and they do it with Maersk Shipping. So if you do ship anything and you use Maersk and you use IBM as consultants, you can have a blockchain supply chain. It's already made. So basically you license the software and all you do is pay them a fee and you say, okay, well, I'm buying a Lexus, so I'll give him permission to be on the blockchain. It's coming from Japan, so I'll put the customs agent in Japan on it. It's coming through Maersk, so I put the shipping agent on it. And then it's coming to Boston, so I put the Boston customs agent on it. Guess what else it prevents? Bribing customs officials. Can't do it anymore. There's no more cash. So if you happen to ship to, let's say, a country where you have to bribe someone to get your stuff off the boat, there's no more cash involved. So it actually reduces fraud and corruption at the same time. So this is my favorite use case of blockchain. I have found in my experience, I have met very few people who are making money at blockchain. 90% of blockchain ideas are bad. There are people who are using blockchain when they don't need it. So ask yourself, if someone ever comes to you with a blockchain opportunity, or you want to use blockchain, ask yourself, do I need it? Could I use it another way? If you can use another way outside of blockchain, you don't need blockchain. There are not many cases where people are actually going to need blockchain. Right now there's a lot of hype, a lot of popularity, but don't be sucked into these get-rich-quick opportunities because I think you're just going to get a tax write-off at the end of the day. So be careful, use common sense. This is not the magic that people say it is. I think in about 10 years people will say, yeah. It's as popular as email was when it came out. Now email is not as fascinating as it was. So right now I think it's a very bright and shiny object. It's very useful, but it's not as great as it's hyped up to be. And that's basically my presentation. So I appreciate you coming tonight, and I can stay later if you have any other questions. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being my customs agent, and thank you, Dylan.
It was an honor listening to you.
Thank you. Oh, and I'll be making a tape of this, so I'll put it on YouTube, and everyone can watch it. And you can share it with friends if you like.